The order's 4 off in case.
That's good.
I'm ready.
Alright, 4, the K preempts and the advantage. Alright.
Okay.
Everyone, Bueller? Alright, cool. Interpretation democracy means full democracy. Chang'an 18, the EU subordination to continue full democracy. 19 violation. The United States is not one of the one is limits. Anything besides full democracy is explode the territory of 150 nations, meaning the affirmative can defend any country and subset of instances within the country, i.e. tax returns, can have campaign finance, health workers, as well as actors limits, explodes neck prep, burden, and draws unreciprocal lines of debate where the affirmative is all his. Second is topically, full democracy is the most germane to the value question of the topic. Chang'an 18, full democracy refers to broad democratic principles. All nations participate in full democracy have freedom and civil liberties. The executive and judiciary is independent. The opposition and the media are respected. Fairness is the voting issue. Debates again, they need to be constrained by some sort of reciprocal rule. Drop the debate or T frames around from the beginning and proves the 1AC should have never happened in the first place. T is an affirmative burden. Competing interpretations. We have to set the best norm on how to debate the topic. Debating the topic is something that we decide for every single round, which makes debating interpretation specifically on topicality. No RBI is one. This is negative strategy. The two winner should be able to pick it out on substance, and the winner should be able to collapse on T for 4 minutes. Second, T is an affirmative burden, which means they don't get a cookie for proving that they're topical. Next off. The Supreme Court of the United States on its next available test case should rule that gerrymandering is unconstitutional. True. 18. It's still possible to do so. Individual have through their own districts and validate possibility to be tested. Second possibility could be tested. North Carolina Protestant gerrymandering case favorite. Biggest to the court next term. Kagan heard that the gerrymandering violates the most fundamental of all democratic principles. Who are just not able to rule partisan gerrymandering unconstitutional. Will be allowed to read this pressure back before the court. The counterpoint solves the case. It signals and solve modeling prohibiting gerrymandering gives the strongest internal link to U.S. democracy. Clause 17. Gerrymandering is the biggest obstacle to American democracy. There's a paradox at the heart of democracy. However, it's deeply unpopular yet. Only incumbents were defeated. The polls of one civil realistic approach to democracy is getting rid of gerrymandering. In 2016, there were no competitive races, and as healthy gerrymandering is why American democracy is broken. Next off. The plan shreds HIPAA, no exceptions. It shreds medical privacy. Gurja 16. Facts being leaked about candidates breaching HIPAA laws according to HIPAA. There's a national security order protecting individuals' medical records and health information sacred. But second place, health information remains private until all patient receiving medical care. There are no exceptions for holding a certain job title. Someone caught by patient's medical information, they were told that they cannot release this information. Only a patient can, and who they wish to. Key to Dr. Trust Walker et al. 16 arguments about context, in comparison to the benefits of communication, trust, and patient engagement, and characterize the experience for both clinician and patients. HIPAA's landmark legislation benefit Medicare and 2-week conversation may be highly important for improving quality of care, cost period, patient safety, patient satisfaction. It solves bioterror. Jacob's fine. Lack of trust is a barrier between intellectual renewal and inability to develop knowledge to the research labs of the public. We ask for the public health to be overrun by clinical chairs and CDC director replied, you can manage people with the UHS and Secretary, we are going to be testing medicines. We can hypothesize the trust from willingness patient to participate in criminal trial. Trust has been shown to be important essential to patients willing to seek care, willing to receive sensitive info, submit to treatment, their fellow recommendation tends to be willing to use variable. Next off is the CAPK. Liberal constitutionalism and their modeling arguments have been a weapon of imperial war for nearly a century. The affirmatives have failed attempt to restore the lost ideal of neoliberal internationalism that is fundamentally unsustainable and results in unethical violence. It outweighs the case Bali and Rana 18. The unraveling of the international orders put in place under the leadership of post-war periods in the quarter century. The United States serves as a global hegemon whose legitimacy depends on legality, able to command consensual participation that still preserves the same kind of benefits of other defining feature of power's liberal constitutionalism. Our rigorous bar to present values are not defections at all. They were baked into the very structure of how policymakers attempt to marry universal claims of efforts to protect power. American imperialistically working out our internal weight of its own inherent contradictions with the Muslim world side as an incubator of terrorist threats. The United States movement to simply consolidate a power abroad. Trump has produced political acclimated values that themselves identify and constitutionally represent price in American global power. Capitalism is economically, politically, and ecologically unsustainable. It causes environmental destruction, violent authoritarian politics. It turns the case favor. 18. Systemic crisis in nuclear capitalism is a crisis of legitimacy, ruling class structure, political manifestation can be seen as a original fresh first in Latin America, Asia, and Europe. The rise of poverty and populism, responsible for the progress in neoliberalism, revolving deregulation, financialization, free trade, rollback to welfare, trade and projections, U.S. military power, keeping the region of wealth flows under facilitated by military entity, regulation, privatization, rollback civil liberties, and climate change to the global ecological crisis are getting worse. Environment and inequality increase faster than income inequality. Corporations for discussing exporting ecological hazards, export of ecological economic logic, legal policymakers. Cut the cord of policymakers. The alternative is militant anti-capitalist politics. Frost 17. Their work is ignored by the right or left to restrain spending on Trump has issued an executive order. The NYWTA was alarmed by the pay cuts. Trump is in solidarity with thousands. The anti-ban rally JFK was a big story. Someone underreported was the labor action. The NYTA threw a fat wrench in the daily function. The leftist radical militant units of political vision beyond their own rank and file. We need to liberate coalitions and referrals that's illegal. Sometimes workers want to camp out and occupy the working class like any other. How dominant is its source of profits? Only works that can take capital hostage and make the whole world stand still. The case on the can review. None of these arguments apply because there's no state link to the CAPK. The only argument that could apply is Adderton evidence, but they have not the specific links. The specificity of the CAPK link should frame your decision on whether there's a link to the international modeling stuff. The link card is extremely specific to U.S. modeling of U.S. promotion of democracy, which means none of their K-premiums supply. Now the advantage. Their Kasparov will concede modeling. Their Kasparov evidence says that U.S. has to go abroad in order to promote the liberal order again, which is declining. Withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal and failures in the Middle East plus counterbalancing mean U.S. leadership is dead now. Trying to go back to unipolarity triggers violent conflict, especially under Trump. Adams 18. America's experience in historical turning point trigger the iron agreement with the TPP and Paris celebrated eventually for global round. It's about to American century. The United States become just another power. Republicans demand bellicose American assertiveness to debate secular firing squad. Any options well chaos withdrawing from Iran is most recent nail in the coffin lid was the missus buried in the Middle East and right on the regional power. Russia is also going to regional stability. There's no way pushing the Russians out short of direct conflict. The invasion of Iraq may help the Pandora's box. The U.S. become a rapidly marginal player. The Middle East containment of China has failed. U.S. military forces failed. War crimes in Afghanistan. The U.S. Russia. Both the rest of the world to restore the liberal international order. The entire world will find itself in an even more dangerous moment. Asserting the superiority of American order will no longer pursue rising powers. America is just another power. The U.S. must learn to play with us as a global sandbox. Rebels use terrorism. Democracy enables passive support for funding and arms trafficking. San Anka. 14. Democracy found themselves to be passive supporters of rebel groups committing back attacks of terrorism, liberties, and freedom. Create a convenient environment. Terrorism is just one of the many tactics employed by liberals. Democratic states cannot avoid exploitation because the internet interferes and liberties exist. Democracies is true even after we control press freedom and extra democracy or ethnic religious ties. Successful attacks cause retaliation and collapse the economy. Both and Bud. 17. A single terrorist nuclear bomb would have throughout the world numerous carbon studies has included possible sophisticated group to make a crude bomb. There have been 20 seizures of nuclear material in these two terrorists who make same damage require nuclear bombs. Events the consequences mean every small chance is enough. A crude terrorist nuclear bomb would carry the possibility of countless fires would coalesce into devastating fire, hard reinforcement. Everything in life would be consumed. Radiation would be far more difficult. Cut the card at difficult. American career democracies in the Middle East fuel terrorism. Piazza. 7. Democracies that are conducive to terrorist state and dictatorships. Democracies provide great opportunity for terrorists to terminate through politics. Democracies are more tempting targets for terrorism because of respect to liberties, this quality of responses. Anything democracies more willing to negotiate with terrorists. New democracies possess liabilities inherent in democracies in general. Towards democratic stability to reduce terrorism. The results of the study do not have us foster democracy in the Middle East will prevent a war against terrorism. The results are just the opposite. Liberal international systems are susceptible to terror. Democratization causes civil war. 7. 9. Before democratization, the public's not active. The sense of belonging in nations relatively weak democratization, increased nationalism, at least made different political opponents, traitors, and polarizing tactics, create tensions among ethnic groups, and increase the risk of violent clashes. Weakening central authority gives the elites the opportunity to monopolize the main data, creating division in society. As a balance of power shifts from the old authorities, new actors, and the power vacuum emergence, intervention weakens the state monopoly, and the use of force in the military, basically, independent role of democratization during democratization, uncertainty, uncertainty, creates never commit promise to being a state authority, increase the sense of insecurity. The regimes are successful in honoring their commitments and showing self-restraint. Democracy's net worth for peace. Got 17. The pacifying effect of democracy is epic, phenomenal, territorial issues of efforts to address democratic pacifying rival democratic leaders. Filters our problems on evaluating test and interactive relationship between democracy and internal effects and effect is less valuable to liberal institutions and norms and ever lower the likelihood of more conflict on any cost resolve electoral position power forces that present even the generally democratic relationships makes it difficult to stress one another and inhibits conflict resolution facilitates persistent hostility.
Right, so you didn't read
the rest of the impact grants.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yep. Yeah, 1 second. I just saw what the Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Good. Status of the advocacies?
Condo.
Condo? Okay. Can alternative with the K happen in the world of the ad?
No.
Okay, so your response to Adderton was that the K isn't a critique of larger institutions. How is capitalism not a large institution?
No, it is a critique of large institutions, but it's a specific one of the affirmative's embrace of it. Your Adderton evidence says that operating within large institutions must be coupled with specificity. The Body and Raw evidence is particularly about modeling liberal internationalism, which is what the affirmative defends throughout the Leniency process. There are multiple reasons why that's bad. It's like a linear descent to the end.
What is militant anti-capitalist politics?
The Frost evidence provides numerous examples. Labor organizing involves going against things like the liberal order, which you maintain through modeling. You tell other countries that you should follow U.S. norms.
So this also seems to disprove the democratic modeling arguments you're making, that we spread anti-capitalist ideals, but you also say that modeling doesn't work.
I don't say modeling doesn't work. Modeling works. It just it works to do bad things.
Okay.
But we conceded that the models.
Okay. Wait. So then, how does the alternative not model bad?
What do you mean not?
How does the alternative not set bad models?
What? No, the alternative is a fantastic model. It's anti-capitalist.
Okay, cool. So all we need to do is prove the app is a good model.
Well, yeah, that's the link argument. Yes, if you answered the link, you would win. The app is not a good model because the modeling empire of the United States is caused massive amounts of war, structural violence, and oppression, as detailed in the Bali and Rana evidence.
Okay, that's fine. How do the counterplan and the democracy framing bad arguments you made on case, how do these not conflict with each other?
The counterplan's counter.
Oh, okay, fine.
Advantage counterplan impact turns. It's
okay, wait. So what is a full democracy?
A full democracy, the EIU has the democratic index, which they rank countries on a scale from 1 to 10 with a bunch of decimal places based on various aspects of their democraticness. There are 19 of them. None of them are the United States.
Oh, cool. So people also why is limits such a stretch for you when you read a topical diss ad, you read a ton of shit on case, why is limits such a huge worry? You need more ground?
So I think you just answered your own question with the ground part of that question, because that's not what limits is.
Okay, well then can you answer that for me?
Answer what?
Well, like why is limit so significant?
It creates irreciprocal skew where there are a flurry of affirmatives, i.e. like around 115 of them. Maybe I have something against yours, but that's not what topicality is. Like, even if I have something in this debate, like, if I, like, came up and I read an F from Living Wage, and I was like, I open source the F, you have stuff to read against it. Just because I have stuff to read against it doesn't mean it's, like, the topic.
Okay, that's fine. 4 minutes. No, 56 seconds left. The order is going to be the F on the advantage theory, the counterplan, the disad, then okay.
Your doc.
What?
Your doc.
Oh, no, no problem.
Can you say that again? I'm about to put this on a separate thing so I remember the word.
Sure. So
Okay.
it's the F on the advantage theory, the counterplan, the disad, the critique. Oh, actually, here, I'm gonna take like another 40 second prep. Let me set up the cards.
Stop compiling just in the top.
No, I'm throwing it in the unit thing.
Okay.
Good.
Oh, okay. I thought you said I didn't.
How much time did you have after you restarted?
42.
42? Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. The modern United States has securitized the increasing power of the surveillance state with no judicial check on it. Means the government can do whatever they want with no violence. That means authoritarianism, abuse of power, outweighs any impact because the government can control citizens, take away and give rights to the police, and make them work in state interest. No individual can truly feel rational or free, but all communications can be seen by the government. It also makes the U.S. set a bad democratic norm. The Trump administration has set a hard standard that controls citizens, so Canada modern democracy that gets modeled globally. Democracy solves the root cause of every impact because the U.S. has set bad democratic models in the past. Only by setting better democratic norms can we create better global modeling to check authoritarian government. So, hey, more about our candidates as a starting point to a more transparent government, sets global standards, and spark activism. Any chance that the case solves outweighs. You should reject dominant ideology in every instance because it controls all potential reform. Under democracy, link turns double bind. Either this disproves the counterplan and the counterplan can't solve, or the counterplan does solve democracy modeling, and then none of it is good, and none of their offense applies. Also, reject their mindset that there was always a major risk to be stopped. They didn't do any extinction or magnitude first weighing, so prefer our weighing 8 point is that every impact has a 1% chance of being true. There's a reason why none of the extinction theories we say in this round are actually ever going to happen. For example, typing on a computer and someone dying in the street is then sort of like shape B point. Is that suffering of millions of people creates conditions where it's not just an immediate death or short-term death, but instead a long time life of suffering and torment where there is no such thing as pleasure because the state controls every action you take. C point is external Kaplan evidence from the advantages. They are like outweighs because it creates conditions where nothing is pleasurable for an infinite amount of time. The only argument that may not weigh into this is organic evidence that says democracy is now worse for peace, where we have proven that the negative leads to things like securitization of black communities, which is way worse for peace. This card also just doesn't have a work on a theory. Overview, they have drawn framing which takes out theory and links into the judge's role. The ballot is contextualized by the one to see that, and this necessitates that the app framer comes first because their criticism. The arguments are reading two arguments. A point is extension row 13 theory charts after your punishment for going outside the boundary of what is deemed appropriate. This is exactly what drives the logic of someone taking away someone else's rights to students by cutting off their avenues for participation. Second is that theory creates rules and norms. It is a disciplinary force that just has to limit the capacity for critical thinking. It destroys the ability of social activism, which outweighs in the long term. Even if you claim some impossibility to engage with them this round, your norm of setting boundaries sets a standard that it's okay in educational spaces, which violates the 1AC framework because you support the normalization of students and development structures by denying them a way to break out. And these arguments were considered under the 1AC. No new responses in the two and our implicit clash isn't sufficient to respond to the largest framing claim out of the 1AC. Also on your interpreter, we don't know the list of a full democracy before the round. We only interpret the resolution through how we see it, which is just the word a democracy. They also don't have a violation that the U.S. isn't a full democracy. You can check in the doc. We'll read a card for you. The U.S. is a democracy. Hard stop. Bold. 15. The U.S. may be labeled as a constitutional federal representative democracy, but which the oversimplification democracy and republic will work. There's no basis for saying that the U.S. is somehow not democracy, but a republic democracy, and republic are just words that a speaker can arbitrarily define to mean something. Cut the card or cut it at democracy and prefer reasonability with a bright line of Lincoln impact for ground. Don't vote on theory if you don't believe that we made this impossible for them. Frame this under our takeouts of theory as well. They can read any argument with a generic topic link or a link to our method. The United States also has the most topic list, especially under the Trump administration. Go on to the counterclaim. Conditionality is a voting issue. First is strategy, it makes the negative a moving target, so we don't know what the debate is until the 2 hours. Justify severance intrinsic and severe 1 AR. 2 second is reciprocity. Counter justifies taking the app and reading a new one in the 1 AR. It makes the 1 AR impossible to cover all of their offense. Third is pre-run prep solves all their offense. They get their education pre-run researching and determining best advocacy. 4 is counter pre dispo. It allows strategic app straight turning and solves all of their offense. Also, they can't solve democratic modeling. Their class evidence doesn't give a reason why so many people care about gerrymandering that it would significantly shift democracy to the point where it's viewed as good. Going to the dissent. No link. Health disclosure does not require all conditions to be disclosed. Candidates can still maintain privacy. You should view the app material. And Striker 18. Our view does not require candidates to disclose information that are controversially relevant to the ability for our ability of disclosure is cancer related. When it requires students to disclose information about a sexual assault, this ensures that information important risks and benefits is not likely to provide a procedural safeguard against slippery slope. Also, you should cross-apply all of our probability weighing arguments. The bioterror doesn't matter ethically under our framework if we win that probability comes first and that the app has probable impacts that are happening right now. Also, you should also cross-apply our arguments from solvency. There are obviously some checks on how much information can be disclosed without it being considered like 4.
Okay, cool. 4. Starting now. Is the theory bad stuff on T a reason to drop the debater?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. other arguments? I got reciprocity and I got clash. Is there any other ones?
Yeah, 1 second. Pre-round prep solves all your offense and counterinterpreted dispo.
Okay. The order is T on the like perfcon, not the like T bad stuff. Then the counter plan. Then the disad. Then the case, and then the K.
Wait, so theory.
Theory, counterplan, disad, case K.
Okay.
Everybody good? Alright. Their argument is just a reason to reject theory. We'll concede that it's incoherent, which takes out conditionality, but it's not a reason to drop the debater. First, look at the text of the rule about. It says to vote for the best policy option. You are voting for a policy option this way. That is the text of the rule about was the one I see. No takes, backsies, which means you either endorse the one he sees policy option, you don't. You don't vote on random theory bad nonsense. Second, perfcon with conditionality. Perfcons are uniquely worse because they're like premeditated murder. You knew what you were doing was bad, which means you did in the first place. So if the 2-year goes for theory bad as a reason to drop the debater on topicality, then they should lose for reading conditionality because they link to all of their offense. They police debaters, establish rules, etc., etc. The 1-year here cannot read theory, a critique of theory, and then a theory argument. This takes out I'm not going for sheet. They've conceded that no RBI's topicality is the affirmative burden, which is enough defense against a camp theory in the first place. Now, the count upon kicking it, not going for it, which means we don't solve democracy. That means the democracy impact terms all apply. All I have to do is answer conditionality. They say conditionality is voting issue 1. Cross-apply reasonability. Their reasonability line, which I'm conceding right now, is just Lincoln impact term. You have Lincoln impact term. There's no reason conditionality violates that bright line, which means you cannot go down to theory argument when they set that reasonability bright line. Second, the whole theory and coherence stuff should take exams in the first place. Now, conditionality is good for logical policy making. Winning the plan is better than the counterplan doesn't logically affirm since the plan can still be worse than the status quo. A point kills decision making skill since it forces argument choice. That is illogical and never happened in the real world. Outweighs since logical decision making is the most portable and applicable skill. B point is ideological flexibility. Condo forces the affirmative to defend their position against all angles instead of just one. They have to prove that they're optimal for democracy, which means the counterplan test whether they're good enough for the impact terms test whether democracy is good in the first place. So they have to defend all parts of the affirmative. The two are collapse and turns to deep clash on one consistent set of issues. This answers their arguments. Their reciprocity stuff, they get infinite conditional permutations. So too bad they didn't take advantage of this. Made the clash stuff breadth is better because it allows us to focus on a number of issues, and all of the depth stuff happens out around the pre-round prep, and the dispo standard are answered by our logical policy making argument, which dispo doesn't solve because if they straight turn the counterplan, we still have to go for it. Now the case. We conceded that they model. I'll leave some specific lines from their evidence that proves the link to all of our democracy impact terms. Their MUGA evidence says, quote, with illiberalism on the rise, there are fears that this year could be the end of the, this year could be the year that the global liberal order dies. We're impact turning the global liberal order. Their Kasparov evidence says, quote, American leadership is required because there's no one else, and it's because it's good for America. There's no weapon or wall that is more powerful for security than America being envied and admired all around the world. We have conceded all of their modeling arguments where we impact turn the pieces modeling and impact turn democracy in the first place. There are 3 impact turns that we're specifically looking for. First is the Adams 18 evidence. They've dropped it. This is the unipolarity sort of modeling argument. The Adams evidence says that the global liberal order, that the American-led global liberal order has already died with failures in the Middle East, such as the Iran nuclear policy and backing out of TPP, which means we cannot effectively promote democracy now. If we try to model democracy and push democracy abroad, which we conceded that the 1AC does, it results in violent wars with other global powers because America has lost its seat as the head of the world because the people like Russia, China, and Iran have all established regional powers. They cause infinite messing around in the Middle East, which we have impact turned. This was straight conceded. It outweighs all of our offense. Sub 0.8's probability, 100% strength of, it has 100% strength of link because it was straight dropped. It is a model that they rail on. Sub 0.B hijacks the internal link to all of their offense because they require proving modeling in order to solve their impacts. But we're turning whether modeling actually results in like more good norms and less authoritarianism in the first place. The second impact turn that we dropped is the Piazza 07 evidence. New democracies cause more violence because there's a vacuum of power. America comes in, says promotes democratic norms, kicks out authoritarian regimes, and then just like sort of leaves, which leaves a huge power vacuum for more violence to come forward, sort of populism and all of these things. This outweighs the affirmative on a global scale because it's an impact that they have not answered. Third, the argument we're going for is the 709 evidence. This was also conceded. It says that democracies lead to more civil war because there's infinite splitting between political parties, and democracies in the Middle East, particularly where they say they model, where their Kasparov evidence says they model, results in warring factions which break states apart and doesn't actually transition to a full democracy, but rather shatters the infrastructure of that state. That causes an infinite amount of structural violence for those people and more authoritarianism, which means it turns the affirmative. The line by line on the 1AR arguments on the case, their top one is that security and authoritarianism outweighs any impact. To clarify, we conceded modeling happens and an impact turn modeling U.S. democracy, but we will contest that they resolve securitization. Their evidence is about the NSA policies. The modeling does not solve NSA policies, nor do they access any risk of this impact. Their next argument is that democracy solves impacts because it sets good norms. We are begging the question of whether it sets good norms in the first place, which we got to on the critique page a little bit second. The next argument was the counterplan double bind. This is ridiculous. This is how conditionality, like advantage CP plus impact turns works. You have to answer both of them because I can just take the counterplan and go for impact turns, which means this argument doesn't matter. You say reject extinction weighing, there are long link chains. First of all, if you conceded all the link chains, then this doesn't matter. Second, none of your evidence is actually like securitization probability weighing stuff. And third, all of our impacts are like about warring regimes and factors and stuff. We're not warring regimes and factors and such. We're not answered. The next argument is that suffering of millions outweighs. Yeah, we access that impact. There's no explanation for why the plan, which is just U.S. right to know, resolves any of this stuff. But there is an excellent explanation for why promoting modeling democracy is bad. The last argument is this Kaplan-Bear-Life argument. The negative turns Bear-Life because it results in warring factions and authoritarian regimes in the Middle East, more terrorism, and split states, which outweighs their offense. The critique. Drug critique, that it goes all well with the impact turns. The impact outweighs the affirmative, which is global capitalism. It eventually causes extinction. Subpoint A, it turns their dominant forms of power argument because it proves that they're embedded within an institution that will never reproduce arguments. Subpoint B is cyclicality. Capitalism infinitely reproduces violence in their liberal order. So outweighs the alternative solves this because it's a militant form of anti-capitalist politics that allows us to resist the liberal international order, which the 1EC so loves because it allows us to materially break down the grassroots strategies side are like the taxi driver unions that broke apart the travel ban, which reforms an illiberal democracy they don't have. Now all I have to do is wink the link debate. The Bali and Rana evidence was another link to the democracy bad stuff. Because liberal internationalism, i.e. what the affirmative relies on, is about the global hegemon of the United States. It's an international order that is being continuously unraveled. The U.S. attempting to put it back together, it results in departures and then causing infinite amounts of violence. The United States not having bad democratic norms is not some anomaly, but rather it's the structure and the function of the United States to have these illiberal forms of democracy, which is serve to secure America's power, which is the link argument they've dropped.
That's 48. Case the theories, I guess.
Case T or case condo?
Case T, like the
Okay.
theory takeouts?
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is everyone ready?
Yeah.
The nexus question of the substance of this debate is about whether knowing more about the democracy, knowing more about the government is good or not. The U.S. is a surveillance state where all information can be controlled and shaped in state interest. That justifies authoritarianism and infinite abuses by the government with no pride land. It also creates bad international models for democracy and is the root cause of an infinite number of impacts. Learning more about candidates and the policies they implement helps spark activism and create better international norms, which is what is going on behind closed doors right now. If we win a 1% impact or chance of case solvency, then you vote affirmative on our offense because dominant ideologies control all the potential reform. He only impact turned the affirmative advantage, but did not respond to solvency whatsoever, which means that we have a 100% risk of solvency in this round, which means that even if he wins any of his impact turns, they can't apply because all of our solvency is specific to the one I see. He has also conceded the thesis of probability framing. He says there's a 100% probability on his arguments because we dropped it, but it is probability in the sense of ethical framing, not framing within this round. It's the probability of the scenario itself, not probability in the debate sense. Yes, you said none of our evidence in the one I see is about securitization probability weighing, but it was a new weighing argument in the 1AR because there were no arguments in the 1AC against it. His arguments are straight up non-responsive. You have conceded that the affirmative is the only probable impact because securitization is happening right now. U.S. democracy is being modeled bad right now. Only the affirmative can solve this constant ongoing oppression that happens against specific groups, whereas his are all related to bioterror and larger scenario impacts that do not matter under our ethical framing that we have established in the 1AR going to theory. Isham's strategy was abusive and he should lose. The app has been on the wiki all day. We flipped right away and he was able to do specific prep for 30 minutes before the round. He was able to very clearly win just by reading this up. He had in the 1 and T. So why the hell did you need to read theory, two condo advocacies, and additional conflicting case offense on top of that just to make the 1AR impossible? All of our conditionality arguments apply to this also. He thinks it takes it out, but we'll do more of that work. He thinks condo disproves this argument, but we'll do that work later. The whole idea is that you make this debate impossible because you have infinite prep and you're able to go as deep as you want on the affirmative case where instead of actually comparing methods and having a deep debate about clashing issues, he is able to win on whatever argument he wants, but we are stuck down to debating about the affirmative. And a huge 2-hour grandstand on case like he did in this debate is a huge example of the abuse that it causes. Kicking theory links you right back into the abuse in the first place because hey, you may want to have an engaging debate, but as soon as we call you out and realize that you had already had enough ground on case, you kick it and decide that hey, apparently I don't have enough ground. You reading and kicking out of theory is the exact same logic as the United States shutting down people's rights and preventing them from engaging within democracy. You say our rule of valid doesn't say it's a reason to reject you, but this just straight up isn't a response. It was our Curry evidence. The idea that you are able to control what we can and cannot do in the round is the exact same logic as the United States federal government shutting down people's rights. His 2-1 grand slam case proves all of the abuse. You should lose. It violates the 180 framework, which you have conceded throughout the round.
Cool. Innovate.
I have a ton of Swiss letters if anyone wants them. Just takes on.